how to run a creative media business, so hopefully you're in the right place. So you've heard from Shaneika and the panel discussion, but I thought we would just start by going and maybe introducing ourselves briefly, and then maybe just why did you want to start your own creative media business? So maybe we can have Dean start and just work our way down here.
Well, hi everyone, I'm Dean Hamer. I'm the director of QWaves Media, and we make social issues documentaries and impact campaigns to go along with them. And I guess we really started the company because we had a story that we wanted to tell. As often happens, it was our own story. It was what happened when my partner and I got married 10 years ago, and there was a big commotion about it. And we decided that we wanted to tell the world about what life was like for gay teenagers in rural America. And we asked other people, wouldn't you like to write a story or make a movie or something like that about it? And everyone else was not interested. So we said, well, we'll make a movie. And then it turns out if you want to make a movie, you got to make a firm. And if you got to make a firm, you got to make a company. And you got to get support and do all that stuff, which is a long story. But that's how it all started. And we are still making social issue documentaries now based here in the Pacific.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Shaneika?
Hi, I'm Shaneika. I started Storylite Studios about 4 years ago, and we concentrate. Well, it's just me, and I subcontract like fellow filmmakers to help me out when I want to execute a large project. But initially, my business kind of started because I was in the wedding industry, and I was making like all sorts of films, and I was trying to reimagine what a wedding film would look like for an engaged couple, because, like I said before, what I was seeing in on our islands, it was really cut and dry and kind of repetitive, so I kind of want to do something different. But after some time has passed, I'm kind of like reimagining my business now, and I'm focusing more on narrative and documentary filmmaking and seeing how I can incorporate that into fashion and music and other things. And like consistently collaborating with like other fellow creators.
Great. Do we want to see some of your work now, so we get a better idea of the work you do? Okay. So Shaneika was great with offering to share her demo.
It's really old, it's 2 years old.
New to us. so she filmed all of that, pretty much yourself?
Yes.
By myself.
Yeah.
And then she edited it.
I edit. And then the color grading is a little rough. I'm still rough. I'm still like trying to develop my work.
So it's really beautiful. I actually met Shaneika over email because I was trying to get her to come shoot for my film, and it hasn't worked out because she's so busy with all her projects, and so maybe in the future that will happen. But you can hear what she was saying, so the company is her, and you must wear a lot of hats doing all the different roles. So we'll kind of get into that, like what are the things you need to think about when you run your own company. But thank you so much for sharing the reels so we have a better sense of the work you do. And then we have Marsom and Tolua Samifua from Lady Pasifika. So maybe they can just share a little bit about what Lady Pasifika is. Sorry, we have to share microphones.
Hi everyone, Talofa Lava. My name is Tolua. My sister and I are here. I'm very honored to be here. But I'm the founder of the magazine that is here on the screen. But what is Lady Pasifika now was really not meant to be a business. It was more of a social cause that we felt was missing in the industry of magazines and media. And for me personally, loving magazines growing up, I always carried magazines in my bag. And I always pictured seeing one of us on the cover of a magazine. And so with that, for the last 12 years I've dreamt of this. We decided to actually launch it with no funding, no kind of backing, and no education. We literally, from our hands and our minds and our money, launched our publication with the faith of empowering our women in the Pacific scope of not only here in Hawaii, but across the nation and the globe. And we're a very humble publication, so we're so honored to be sitting here next to these amazing entrepreneurs. We are the babies in that entrepreneurship world, so we're very honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add to what she said. So we're sisters, and our background is we're very, very close. Like, we grew up, anyone that knows us, we do everything together. So when Tolua approached me about her idea with Lady Pasifika, it was just naturally for us to be like, oh yeah, let's do it, let's do it together. So that's basically where we're at. I'm more of the background. I handle the emails, finances, her calendar, but there's a team of us. There's 7 of us that actually put this thing together and what makes it work and what got us to where we're at now. And we're a year in, literally just babies compared to everyone that's here. So it really is an honor to be here, and we're so nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh. But thank you. And yeah, she's really the brains behind everything. I just kind of stay in the back and type. That's it. Thank you.
Was that the lights on?
Yeah,
Or?
that's right.
I don't know. Oh, great, thank you. Sorry, because I wasn't really actually sure how to do the lights here. Well, let's start with that. And it's great. I love that we have a diversity here of folks who have been doing their own creative media business, film business for many, many years, and those who are, kind of in the thick of it. So maybe just what are the first steps you need to take to start your own business? Maybe each of you can share that, whether it's financially, like I think that's what a lot of people are thinking, is like, oh, that sounds great to be your own business owner, but how do you even start? Like, do you need to have capital, or do you need to build a team? Like, what do you need to do to start it? So maybe we'll start here, since you're still, kind of in that phase. What are the steps that you took to start your company for the magazine?
I think a lot of it is research. I Googled everything. Google is Google University, but I also enrolled myself into an entrepreneurship course that's offered by Vaialofi, which is a nonprofit that services the Native Hawaiian community here in trying to get into any sort of business that you're passionate about. And so they were so gracious to allow me to enter that space as a Samoan woman coming into a space of Native Hawaiians. They were so open, sharing their values with me and just teaching me and helping me navigate this idea in my head and putting it out to the world. So that is a big thing, is finding, I think, a community of like-minded people is big, because there's a lot of naysayers out there who are going to tell you that what kind of money are you going to make from that, who's going to even care about what you're doing, and then finding education is important. I have a long way to go. I still have a lot to learn, and I'm still learning every single day. And then doing your research, that is so very important, because everything from registering your name legally, federally and state locally, and then buying a domain, and then trademarking your logo and your copywriting your name, and then for us as a magazine, we have to make sure our intellectual property is secure so that someone out there doesn't try to steal really what we're doing, because it could jeopardize the integrity of what we're doing. And that's a huge thing for us, because I didn't go to school for business. My background is criminal justice with the idea of being a lawyer, but through my professional experience, that's what really launched the magazine.
Let me interject, so that's a lot you have to do, research. Are you doing this while juggling a day job? Did you quit your day job? Because I mean, I think that's probably a question too. Like, do you just dive right in, or do you try and juggle things for a while until your company really finds its way?
So the 7 of us, the team that makes up Lady Pasifika, we all still have full-time jobs. So on top of 40 hours a week at your regular full-time job, this is another full-time job. So for me personally, the idea of ditching my estate comfort job, paycheck every 2 weeks was ridiculous, and especially like I have student loans to pay, you know, and then I have another half who supports me, but I felt, for me personally, I know some people may approach it differently, but I felt I needed some sort of funding, because this is really, my job is funding my job, you know, and it's true, like for me, I don't have a capital, I don't have a backer as of right now, so for me personally, I would recommend, if you have a full-time job or a steady income from somewhere, definitely navigating the path of where this can go while still kind of navigating your full-time position. I know it is very hard, and had I known it would have been this much work going into it, I probably wouldn't have done it. But that is the beauty of learning and trying to navigate your way as an entrepreneur and as an employee. So yeah.
Shaneika, how about you? What were the first steps you took, and is it, you know, getting financial backing, or just building a team, or just getting your work out there and trying to get clients?
So the first thing that I did was I found a mentor, because this was fresh out of high school, was when I decided that I wanted to start my own business. So I found a mentor, and he kind of took me under his wings, and I had registered my business. I registered my name, I did everything, I did the paperwork, but then I had a lot of dry seasons where I wasn't getting any clients, and so, and I didn't have money to buy the things that I needed to be able to produce the work that I wanted to make. So what I had done was, I worked for my mentor, and I did projects with him, I edited for him, and that's kind of how I started as like an editor. And then I slowly began to save money from that part-time job. And so with the money that I saved, I put it into a separate bank account for my business. And when I had enough, then I would put the money towards my first camera, or my first lens, my first monopod, my first computer, whatever. So that's kind of how I started my business. And then as that was happening, I was also doing a lot of passion projects on the side, where I was trying to find like my vision, my look, what people would be able to recognize me for. And so while I was like saving money and editing for other people, I was trying to fuel my passion by just doing fun projects and like creating work that I wanted to create and putting my work out there. And so I would go out of my way and collaborate and connect with like local fashion designers from like my college, or like musicians that I knew from a show that I went to, or stuff like that, because I wanted to create work for them at the time. And so that's how I started to put like my reel together, and I started pushing it out. And that was when I guess Instagram started to like blow up, and so I started sharing my work, and eventually companies were hiring me for small like freelance jobs to market their work. And when they would tag me, that was when people started to recognize, who's Shaneika, like she does video, so it's like working for Kimberlee. So that's kind of how I started my business. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think obviously the first step in starting any business is to have a good idea. And for us, it was this idea of telling a particular story in film form. But then you do need to make yourself into a business entity. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. It protects you legally from liability. It organizes your finances, which is important, not just for yourself, but for whoever you're getting money from, because they want to make sure the money is going to the right place, etc. And so for a small business, like an LLC is a good way to go, satisfies all those. That's the first thing that we did. And then we went to the bank and said, hey, we're a business, we want to have a business account instead of a separate account. And all of that is sort of instrumental. Of course, the second thing is to figure out where your money is coming in. And if you do social issue documentaries, you're probably not going to make a lot of money by selling them because it's just not the way that that works. But fortunately, we still live in a democracy that has a government that tries to support good works and feels that education is important. And so there are a lot of other routes for funding, and that's mainly where we've gone, is through PBS, the public broadcast system, and also through various foundations that support causes for the public good, like the Ford Foundation and like Sundance, etc. And so that's where we look for support, because we feel we're doing the public good and there should be public support for it, and that's still the case. And we're lucky to be in Hawaii because there's actually a lot of support here for public media that you might not find other places. We have a great olau system, which is more extensive than it is in most states, which is good. We have PBS Hawaii, which is fantastic. We're very fortunate that Pacific Islanders in Communications is located here, which is an NGO that works with PBS. And so, and there's a lot of foundation support here as well for media. So we're lucky to be living in that environment, which is really great.
Great. Does anyone have any questions just about how to get started for some of you in the audience? Yes.
I have a question about when you're saying funding, because I know some of this, but did you have to apply for grants? Did you have a grant writer go and do that? Or was it relationships? Like how was your grants? How did you go about obtaining them?
Yeah, you got to write grants, and you got to express what your idea is, and you got to show some ability to do it, like with a sample reel. Unfortunately, I was fortunate to be married to someone who had been in the grant business, giving grants for 20 years, so that was the grant writer. I was working at the National Institutes of Health, but I was doing sort of video-related stuff, so I was the filmmaker, per se. So we didn't have to hire somebody. And then you have to actually prove that what you're doing. So yeah, writing grants is a good way to go. We were incredibly fortunate. We got an early grant from the Sundance Foundation because they were interested in the project. And like many things in life, once you know one person who's at the center, then you get a lot of connections to be made from that. So, yeah.
For documentaries, it really is more like raising money like a nonprofit, so grants and foundations. I don't know, did anyone on the panel find investors? Do it be sort of a different sort of structure? How is Lady Pasifika? I'm curious, how are you funding? Because you have a couple of issues already, right? For only being around for a year. So how did you get financial support?
Well, my dream in the beginning was being a quarterly published magazine, and then after seeing the price tag for printing 100 of these, I was like, oh, that's done. That's like, we're gonna print when we can afford it. So right now, my full-time job is literally funding printing, and we, in the first couple issues, we didn't have any ads, because again, our ignorance in education and getting ads and marketing, that really showed that in our first two issues. But fortunately, I have a very supportive other half who believes in the dream, and the team that I have. So we're all not getting paid. 7 of us don't get paid for what we do, and we try to stay, so just like being said, so the first important thing is starting a business account, because you definitely want to separate your personal finances from your business finances, because you do not want the IRS knocking on your door and just shutting your whole dream down right from the get-go. So that was a big thing for us, and so my personal funds are going into that business account, and whatever money we did make from sales, goes right back into the business. So a year together, with their faith and staying up late at night to draft up these layouts, doing the interviews, the photographers are from our team, that was all faith, just the faith of this mission that we have. But literally the money was coming and is coming from my own personal funds because I believe in it, But after a year together, we actually are so proud to say that we have people actually buying ads from our magazine, and opportunities like this that Kimberlee has offered us, and to speak and to get paid, or just to get compensated for doing this is huge for us as a small team. So those little things, like those little victories for us, I know it's not gonna happen overnight, and I went into that knowing that, just not realizing how expensive it was, but right now, I'm also looking for a mentor, and that was my ignorance, not doing my research enough, and looking for a mentor that can guide me in that direction. I'm either looking for an investor or because we're a for-profit, we're not a non-profit, so we have to look for grants that particularly could help award us as a social cause for-profit in that direction. So.
And I think all three of your companies are limited liability
Yes.
companies, are all three?
Yes.
So they are all for-profit, and the interesting thing about when you do documentaries is, I don't know if you want to explain the fiscal sponsor thing, so if you are, most film companies I know are LLCs, limited liability companies, but when you're doing like a documentary, something that's a social issue, you can partner with a nonprofit organization and they can become your fiscal sponsor so you can access grants. Because as a for-profit company, you cannot apply to Sundance, for instance. So that's just something to know. And definitely correct me if I'm wrong for the three of you. Okay, so yeah, so it sounded like you were saying they file their company papers. What about taxes? What do people need to know about bookkeeping, finances? We talked about having to have a separate bank account. What else? Kind of like I would love to just give some of these practical pieces of advice to those of you. I mean, can I get a hands? How many people are thinking of starting your own business? Right? Okay. So hopefully these things, these are things you need to think about. So finances. How do you manage them? Do you hire an accountant and bookkeeper? Do you do your own taxes? What do you do?
Right now we're doing it, yeah.
We do it every day.
Yeah, QuickBooks is a really good tool for those who, like for me, I don't have an accounting background or math background, and really keeping track of your receipts, keeping track of whatever is, the money coming out of your bank account, and then putting that into that QuickBooks where you have to separate your, your assets, and then your income. And that's where you really see whether you're making money or not. And after doing my taxes for the first year, I was like, oh my gosh, my assets are like right here, and then my income was like way down here. But it's a big eye opener for me as well as a business owner too. I need to start cutting things that we really don't need to be doing, and focusing on where the income is coming from, and then networking a lot more.
So this LLC structure is very useful because you can separate the business side from the personal side. And many of you, if you're doing a startup, it's probably going to be the office is your bedroom, and the studio is the living room, etc. You can write that all off if it's an LLC, because that's part of your actual business operations. It may be necessary to get a bookkeeper just to do some of the final QuickBooks type of stuff, because some organizations, like the large PBS organizations, will actually require that. But you can mostly do things yourself, and as long as you have a separate business account with a separate card and a separate checkbook that's used only for that purpose, that really simplifies your bookkeeping a great deal. And don't worry about losing money on your first couple of years. You can do that for a couple of years and write it off against your big profits that are about to come in the future. Another good thing about the LLC structure is your LLC will not be taxed at all. Only the money that flows through to you gets taxed on your personal account. So that's just a really useful way to write off business expenses. The only thing the IRS actually does that you do have to look out for is you can't run a business and make a loss indefinitely, because that's just a hobby. It has to eventually make some money, which is also probably a good incentive for you, because it would be nice to have, to be able to pay yourself. And the last thing I just want to say about the whole nonprofit world is that a lot of times there's this feeling that, like, I'm doing this for the good of the people, and therefore I will sacrifice myself and not take any money myself. But funders actually don't encourage that, because then it's more like you're just doing it for a cause. If you're going to be professional, you need to figure out how to pay yourself, at least the survival type of salary, because that's part of doing this as a professional and as a business.
Thanks. Shaneika, did you have anything you wanted to add about finances or the business side of things?
So I was really bad the first couple of years because I have no accounting background and I had no idea what I was doing. My mom just told me to keep all your receipts and just write down your income, and that's all she told me. She didn't tell me anything about like organizing your receipts into different categories and jotting down your mileage and where you're going, because that can be written off too. So QuickBooks is really good, the self-employed version. It's very user-friendly because all you have to do is mark whatever is business income, mark out whatever is personal, and then you can easily, like as soon as you make the transaction, it takes like a couple of days for it to load on the app, but as soon as you make the transaction, you can go on the app and you can swipe left or right, like this is a business expense and I used it towards this or this or this. But recently, because I started to get more income flowing in and more like clients coming in, I didn't have time to do my own bookkeeping or do my own taxes. So I actually had to hire a CPA, she's a certified public accountant, and she's the one that kind of helps me. So I organized everything already. So as soon as I get that receipt, I have a huge filing bin where I drop it in for that month. If it's for meals with the client, or if it's like car insurance, all those things I put in, I categorize them as soon as I get the receipt. I make photocopies of them and I organize them on the app. That's kind of how I've learned to do it. And then I just send it off to her, and then she kind of helps me pay for taxes lesser. Less pay for taxes.
So I was similar to most of you. I mean, I have my own production company, it's just me, and I do everything myself. And sometimes I think I'd love to just hire like an accountant or somebody to do this all, but I also think it's cheaper if I just do it. I'm wondering for you, like, are there vendors or subcontractors you work with that you think they do a vital service that now you know, it's like, I definitely use an accountant or definitely do this? Is there any kind of vendor or subcontractor that you have had to work with in your businesses?
From a business point of view, having someone do the taxes is good because the LLC business gets, the pass-through business gets complicated, especially when you start accumulating losses every year to make sure that you can use those against future years. So I feel like that was worthwhile. More generally, I think that for us, those of us who have sort of small businesses where it's basically just us, it is incredibly important, especially making media, to collaborate with people that are really good. In film, this is particularly true. Films are always made by multiple people because just the cinematography is so different than the editing, is so different than the production. And the difference between good films and films that don't make it this far is in the overall level of excellence of the team. We were incredibly fortunate to pick up an editor for our first film, who then went on to win all types of awards and stuff. We just happened to be available at the time. And each of our editors has been really amazing people. And as I look at the films in retrospect, I'm like, wow, that was really good editing because, you know, we just, we didn't really have a story. There was just a couple of interviews and some filming, and then all of a sudden it turned into a story. And it's been the same with like animation, it's been the same with music. So working with real experts is so worthwhile. And I have to say, if you actually want to make a living at this business, being an expert is better than being a producer because people will pay you if you're really good, I feel like sometimes.
You mean an expert in cinematography or editing?
Like a really good camera person.
Yes,
or
so
really
developing a craft.
A craft
skill.
is really, is really important. And it's important for media too.
I agree. How about marketing? I mean, it sounds like everyone's just kind of doing their own marketing, getting your name out there. Do you have any tips? I mean, we're just talking a lot about technology in the panel and social media. So I don't know if you want to share what's been helpful for you to get your business name out there, if it's been going to like meet and greets or just doing social media or hiring a consultant. What has helped you with more like marketing your businesses?
Social media was a huge very, very significant way for us to get our word out there with no money. And then, you know, staying social with the people that are actually start following us and commenting on our posts, and then going to community events. You know, we were so fortunate to meet people in the community, in the academic world, or even in just the social setting, that they gave us these opportunities to be present at community fairs or film festivals where we just had a table, and that presence alone got us so many connections, and we got to meet so many people in person, talking to them. But social media is great. It is a great tool. Saves a lot of money on your marketing, but I often find that face-to-face is always where we get really capture people and really make those significant connections that help us expand our mission and our vision to an audience that we never thought we'd be able to do. So being present at community events, going to your high school, your local university, or community colleges, talking about what you're doing, if you have an opportunity, that was huge for us, and still is.
Heather, word of mouth was my biggest marketing tool, because like what you said, it was vital for me to find an avenue that I was more specialized in, and it was editing and it was cinematography, but most people started to hire me more for my video work, and having that reputation and just going to as many film sets as possible, even if you're just a production assistant or if you're just a first AC, whatever it is, if you can get your foot in the door and put yourself out there and make that connection with that director, make that connection with that producer, then you can start, that's when you start kind of building your network, and that's when people start coming to you for work, because then now they recognize what you've done on other sets, and then they're going to hire you for what they've heard about you, good things that they've heard about you. And then social media too was like the sprinkling on like the cake or whatever, icing on the cake. So social media really helped me to put my work out there as like a visual portfolio for people. So like when I'm at a community event, or when I'm like a vendor at like an expo or a trade show, I can easily show them my Instagram, which is a really easily accessible visual portfolio for them, but then they're also able to connect with you in that instant. You can just press that follow button. And that's kind of helped me build my community even more, because then through that platform, they can still engage with me, and they can still, connect with me, and that's what helped me,
I think one other important component, besides all that's been mentioned, is working with organizations that support the work that you're doing. And so in our case, that's been working with Pasifika groups, working with LGBT groups that are interested in the causes that our films support, which are like about Mahu, or gender, and so on, and about Pacific culture and preserving traditions. And we offer them a free resource, a film. We often try to tailor resources that will be useful for such groups, like making short films in addition to features. And then sort of what we get back from them in terms of marketing, if you want to call it that, is their organizations and their groups and their social networks. Because it's hard for us to go out person by person and attract a lot of people. But if you connect with an organization that has a lot of members in an area, that's very useful. For us in the Pacific, Facebook has been particularly, because as you know, like in Samoa and Tonga, everybody's on Facebook all the time. It's the telephone as well as, it's everything basically, which hopefully is going to continue. They don't completely mess it up for us. And there's a lot of groups that operate through Facebook, and that turns out to be a pretty cool way to do things. Yeah.
Let's open up for questions about anything about running your own business, if it's something, yes.
Hi, Kim. How much time do we have?
I think maybe 10 minutes.
Oh, okay,
more?
okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask all three, because everybody hears about how hard it is to run your own business, but I wanted like specific a time where you wanted to quit, and then what brought you back?
That's a good question.
And I know it can take a little while to
Yeah.
so.
Another way to think about it is like what sustains you maybe in
Yeah.
this. Yeah, like there are a lot of times where it's probably hard. What keeps you going?
I would say one for us was after our first issue, well, first it was the price tag of seeing how much it was to actually print. And then, you have this idea where, oh yeah, people are gonna buy. And then you start with an audience you don't really know yet, and no one wants to buy it, right? They're just kind of like, oh, okay, I like it, and then they put it down and they don't really wanna. So it was really after that, when we started to reach our target audience, we started being out in more of the community, where we made sales. But it actually came with our second issue,
Yes.
because after the first issue is when we really realized how hard and how expensive it was, and how much work it went into not just coming up with the magazine, but layout, photos, getting the team to figure out, okay, how are we gonna put this together? And we didn't have a layout team. We had no background in layout or even how to make a magazine. We really went into this like blind. And we've learned a lot. And so Tolua was actually doing everything. She was doing most of the writing, most of the editing, most of the layout. And it was crazy. And it was something she had to learn too, where we had to let go of responsibilities. But anyway, back to, I'm sorry, the second issue, when it came, we had challenges of the pricing. So our second issue was so delayed from what we told our subscribers, and it just felt like we were failing, like, gosh, we said it was gonna come out, and then we had to go back and let our email list know and our subscribers that it's been delayed. I think we had to delay it like 2 or 3 times, and for that was a really big, a humbling experience, I think, and it was just me having to send these emails out. I felt like, gosh, like, here we are, it showed how vulnerable I think we were, and how we had to learn, like, it's not as easy as we thought. Like, we thought, oh, we're just gonna do it, we're gonna launch out these 4 magazines this year. We were halfway through the year and our second issue wasn't even out yet. So for us, it was like, yeah, I think that was the point where we all kind of felt like, okay, I don't think we can do this, or how are we gonna come up with the money? And what brought us back was really our team. We have a really great team. I mean, I think the thing we're asked the most is, how did you find your team? And it's really just a few of us grew up together. We have the same backgrounds. We're Samoan, we grew up in the same church. So our values and our upbringing and our culture is very similar. Like, you're put into this world of culture, like what you have to do, what you don't see other Samoans, where you go into other things and they're like, oh, Samoans don't do that, or, oh, that's kind of weird, So that's how we felt growing up. We felt so, like, that's not what we do. But we were privileged enough to have good parents that pushed us to, yes, you can do it, or, and we just kind of came together. We called ourselves the Misfits in our church, and they really supported us. They supported, Lua, and Lua feeling like she couldn't do it all, and the team just really stepping up and saying, give it to me, let me try it, let me do layout. So now, we went from this issue to this to this. This is our 3rd issue, and this is with our new layout team. And this is all the same stuff we started with that we didn't even know had these talents, because we were like, okay, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. And when we opened it up to everyone kind of figuring out where they belong, then we produced such a great product, and our sales have gone up. Even our social media, like she's another part of our team. This is Stacy. She's our photographer, but she also runs our social media, and it's because of the research she's done that's really helped us. And she's also our layout. She did this. And if you ever get a chance to look for her and read it, you'll be able to see the difference between our first issue to now. So it's really opening it up to everyone and not being so like. Yeah, it's the control freak, I think, in us, from my dad. So, yeah, I think that was our biggest challenge, was the second issue, where it really felt like, I don't know if we can do this, and our team brought us back, I think.
Yes. Yes, definitely, with this baby in mind of Lady Pasifika in my mind for 12 years, it almost became, like my child, and I was so worried about giving those responsibilities away, number one, because I couldn't pay them, and just the guilt of knowing that I'm putting on these responsibilities to these people, as much as they're yelling at me like, Lua, give it to me, let me try. I just felt like, I felt that guilt of not being able to compensate them for the hard work that they're doing. Because for the first 2 issues, I literally put them together. Late nights, staying up till like 4 in the morning, going to work at 3 hours later. And so I said, I know how hard it is. I can't imagine giving this to my team and not being able to pay them for that. And then number 2 is the control freak, you know, like, I'm afraid they're not gonna understand what I want. I don't think they know my vision, you know? And once I let go, look at the beautiful things that have come from that. So the first 2 issues, I'm so super proud of it because having no background in publishing and using Adobe and InDesign, that's the software we use. You know, I'm proud that I was able to push those out. But I'm also like, I wish that my first 2 issues, the beautiful people in these first 2 issues got to be in something like this, you know? It's like, because, you know, but it is the team. They brought me back to earth and reminded me of why we even started Lady Pasifika, was not for our personal goals and just wanting to be like these magazine publishers, but it was the community of women that we want to empower. Our girls, our daughters, our sisters, our aunties, our moms, and to thank them for trailblazing us in this scope of a world that a lot of us are not comfortable in. So that's what brought us back and is pushing us forward. And so, you know, being here is a big deal for us, so thank you.
So Shaneika and Dean, I think we were talking about what, like a moment where you thought you were going to give up or fail. What pushed you through? What helped sustain you through this?
For me, it kind of happened late last year because I was dealing with a really, really difficult client. So it's equally important to understand and know who you're working with, and know if it's worth working with them. Because I was kind of like naive and I just wanted to be able to expand my network and community as much as possible. I figured the more people I work with, the better, but that's not always the case. So I was in a really dark spot last year because this client was tearing my whole world apart financially, and emotionally, and it was hard because at that moment I was like, is it worth continuing doing this business if I'm going to end up working with difficult clients again down the line? Because it's inevitable, it's going to happen. You're going to work with difficult people. Sometimes you're not going to be able to collaborate easily with them. And then it took a lot of soul searching and praying for me to understand that it's always just a lesson to learn whenever you're working with a difficult client. It's never a roadblock. You always learn something from it. And so from that, I figured, you know what, it's inevitable. I'm going to end up working with difficult people again in the future. This doesn't mean that I should stop. And so what kept me going was knowing what my intention and my purpose was with reimagining how I wanted to create films. And even if it wasn't easily accepted by a small number of people, it doesn't mean that it means nothing to this other group of people. So I just continued moving forward with the mindset that I'm gonna keep going and I'm gonna keep creating films with intention and with purpose, and I'm gonna reimagine how I'm gonna execute these films that I'm creating to better tell the stories of like our island and like the people here, the communities here that I care about. And yeah, that's what helped me just push through that year. Yeah.
For me, I think every time we get rejected from some prestigious film festival, it's like time to quit this stupid business. And every time we don't get a grant from some big funder, it's like, they don't know how important we are, what's the matter with them? I quit. I think what keeps us going is when we see that the films are having the effect that we're hoping for. For me, the first time that really happened here was getting on Hawaiian Airlines and seeing Hanaho magazine, which is the the little thing that's in your seat pocket, and seeing Kumuhina featured in it, and them talking about mahu not as a derogatory word, but as a revered word, and that was really amazing.
Did you do that one? Was you in it?
Yes, yeah.
Awesome.
And now a really satisfying thing is that Hina's come around to the other side of the lens and helped us produce this film called Ladies in Waiting, which will be on PBS on May 25th here in Hawaii. So please check it out.
We only have time for one more question. Yes.
I got a question for all of you folks, especially Tolua. Have you guys, with the magazine, have you taken the digital aspect of your magazine to online, like showing part articles? Because like you guys, globally, it's someone calling you community is very global.
Yes.
And so by taking it global to like Twitter, YouTube, and then it'll be so much bigger. And there's other ways to get money, like through Patreon, and people love your work versus just getting them. Like if I'm in London and I'm a Polynesian, I love your work, but I don't want to pay for a $5 magazine to get $30 postage. But I love to contribute to you. And then with all you folks are so talented, but you guys are only concentrating on the final product. Your movie. You know what I'm interested in is how you made it. Your creative platform, your interviews, the ladies at the church, you're walking to Polynesia, whatever, going to like how you get these people to interview. I want to see the backstory. And so now with the YouTube, everybody's interested in the unboxing, right? I bought something from Amazon, they want to see the unboxing. I want to see your adverse client. I want to see what you go through. Like, oh my gosh, you want me to redo this? The audio is not good. I mean, I want to see these clips. So by the time I see all those backstories, I'm dying to see Dean's story. I'm dying to see, because these are the outtakes, the behind the scenes. Whenever we go to movies, we wait for the credits to come up to see all the bloopers, right? Yeah. But then we see all, that's more interesting than the final product of the magazine. But I want to see these other stories. And then, again, with your magazine, you can solicit for Patreon and get other money through these YouTube stories. And then when you're not doing the final projects, I would love to see your creative process. And then, like, what's the name talked about? Protect your creative property. Nobody can take what's in your mind. Your mind is always going to be creative, so whatever you do now is old stuff. Like you said, that's 2 years old. But I'd love to see your creative process, how you go out to movies, walking to the airport, like, oh my God, I get all this gear to take. Because I follow this classic pianist, and then she's a famous pianist, but she's a student at Yale. But people love to see these behind the scenes. They have meetups. I failed. I'm nervous at my interview. I'm going to meet with this client. All this vlog stuff, and it's fantastic because it's behind the scenes. And Dean, all those people you talk about, I would love to hear the backstories of what the interview, or not even an interview, but the questions that you plan to ask, or the difficulties you have. And okay, this guy can show up, or I'm trying to get grant money, and then. All these things are, they multiply because they never stop. With a magazine, it's just one product. Yeah. But with the YouTube or the platforms, it doesn't stop because it's multiplying. Because people in London, Australia, whatever, take it globally and without the thing. And then you can only take the money through Patreon, aspects of, talking about, right? Yeah, but people, you have the story to tell, and people, it's huge, the Polynesian all over the world. There's a lot of affluent people.
Great.
Oh, sorry.
So it sounds, I'm sorry, we're pretty much out of time, but I think you've raised a good point. It's about inviting the community into your process, so not just focusing on the final product. And I know a lot of people are doing that, especially with social media, sort of posting like how we are, this is the thing we shot today, here I am in the editing room. But it's a good reminder that to have a sustainable business, so just to kind of sum up what a lot of you said, I heard, know your mission. Like, why are you doing this? You each have a unique story to tell, or a unique perspective on the storytelling. So kind of going back to that, building your team, not trying to do it all by yourself, and trying to leverage the talents of other people. So I know, Tolua, you were saying that, and also Dean was saying, working with great cinematographers, working with great editors. You don't have to be the expert editor and cinematographer and producer. So you can bring people together and get them all on board with that mission that you want to do, and then inviting your clients or your network into that process and building that interaction. So it seemed like those were a lot of things that people were saying.